G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Purple Coloured Glasses in what is a review of the last round of the home and away season. Fremantle got up over the top of the Giants and then we were let down by Carlton and St Kilda. Let's get into the tips and how it went. So, first game, Melbourne up against Brisbane. And I tipped Melbourne in this game. Not the greatest margin. I thought only 10, 15 points. I think I went with 11 maybe. And Melbourne were brutal. This game was over at half time. They had 13 goals on the board. And yeah, the Lions couldn't really come back from that. And they're a bit of a bunny side at the moment for the D's. They've got a really good record against them. They're not afraid of playing against them. I think Melbourne's midfield are bigger and tougher and they know it. Brisbane are a team that like to put a bit of niggle out there. And sometimes it gets under the skin of teams, but I think Melbourne's just too big, too strong for that. And they just don't know the formula of Brisbane for getting on top of Melbourne. So probably a matchup they'll want to avoid if they can actually survive the first week of the finals. So Melbourne march on. Great victory. Then the Saturday morning game, Freo against the Giants. I thought Freo would get up in this one with a degree of ease. There'd be some times here where the Giants threatened, but one where we'd probably control it most of the game. That didn't end up happening. Griffin Logue was a lad out. I think a lot of people knew that was probably going to happen before the game. Bailey Banfield came in. And the Giants got off to a really good start. They got out to a 30-point lead. And things weren't looking good, and I was getting quite frustrated. Here we go again. Losing last week away from home. And Caleb Sarong, who had been really good all day, led a charge back with the team. A few of his mates helped him out, like Michael Walters, Brayshaw, just to steady the ship a bit, get our way back in the game, and then we really dominated them in the second half. We're a bit wasteful with some of our entries and opportunities. Sam Taylor had an amazing game for them, but I think the 11 intercept possessions is also a bit of a fact of having no Taberner, no Lob, no Logue. Fife was a bit rusty. So to come to reverse a 30-point margin, win by 20, so that's a 50-point turnaround, without really an established key forward line at all. You got Fife playing as a hybrid off a bit of a break. You've got Banners up there making some contests. He didn't have a massive impact, I thought. Walters bobbed up with threes, a small. I thought Schultz was a good sort of connecting link-up player. Switkowski didn't have his impact as he normally has, and I thought Freddie was a bit quiet as well. So we've done a really good job to get the job done here. And I think our mids deserve a lot of credit just for the way they really turned it into a bit of an arm wrestle. Nathan O'Driscoll with the Rising Star nomination for this week with his 2 goals. Alex Pearce with his first goal in 7 years from a 50-metre penalty. That was good to see him smash that one through. And yeah, a good confidence-boosting win for the boys. It's a bit unfortunate we don't finish top 4. 15.5 wins most years would get you a top 4 finish. Collingwood just went on this ridiculous streak to end the year, like winning 12 out of 13. And there's so many close games. I just dropped one of those. We finished top 4. D's started a bit. Swans have been really good at the back end of the year, and so have the Cats. So there's some teams in some good form going into the finals. Freo, I think we'll look at maybe the draw against Richmond, where we didn't play that good for periods. The St Kilda loss at home at the start of the year. And the Carlton game, I think, after the bye, we didn't really rock up. There's a couple of games there, excuse me, where they'll probably reflect on and go, if we'd shown a bit more in those games. I think particularly that St Kilda game at home. Things could have been different. But it's still a really good year. At the start of the year, I had the team finishing about 5th or 6th as the sort of ceiling. And so if you look back at the start of the year benchmarks, pretty happy with how the year's gone. It's just when you're in that period of the season where you go, we've been in the top 4 for a fair portion of the year. We're so close, and to just miss out on the double chance, it's tough. A lot of chat about no WA team can win it from outside the 8 because no one's done it. No one had really won it from outside the 8 until the Dogs did it from 7th. I get they had to do less travel, but I think they still had to go Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, Melbourne. If things go our way, it'll be, and there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. Still got to win a home final first. We'd have a game in Perth, and then we potentially play at the MCG against Collingwood or Geelong, whoever loses. And if things go a certain way and Sydney lost, we'd be playing Melbourne at the MCG, and then you'd play in the grand final at the MCG. So maybe they look at a halve or something like that. Not really sure. I would just focus on trying to get over the Dogs first and worry about all that stuff later. But yeah, it's been a good year. It's been a good year. You think about some of the availability of guys like Taberner and Fife. I haven't really had that sort of established lockdown forwards. Switkowski's probably our best small forward. He didn't play most of the year. It was great to have some good availability in our back line for once. I think they pretty much all played most of the games. I think Pearce might have missed one or two and Cox missed one here or there. But the continuity was awesome down back. We found some really good young players. I think with Jordan Clark being a lot better than I thought he would be coming over. Young continues to get better. Chappie, good, improving. We've got some games into O'Driscoll. Erasmus got a couple of games. Amos got a game. I think Sarong, Brayshaw keep building. Brody was good. I think Freddie's had a really good year. I think he can still go up another level or two as well. So, in terms of the growth of the team, I think we're in a really good position. And it's good to get some finals exposure for the team. So yeah, pretty happy. Could have been a little bit better with some icing on the cake, but yeah, thrilled for how the boys have gone this year, and they should enjoy it. But now there's an opportunity to just see how far you can go. No one's going to back us to really do any damage in this position, so there's no real pressure. Just give it the best you can, and you never know what might happen. And North Melbourne against Gold Coast. This was the only tip I got wrong. I tipped North Melbourne, thinking, a bit of the Clarko rebound factor. They've been playing a little bit better in patches in the games I'd watched. I thought Suns had sort of faded out a bit. But no, the Suns came up to play and, won by 60-odd points. There were a lot of blowouts on the sort of Friday, Saturday fixtures, and Freo's game was the only close one. And yeah, I don't know what you say about North. They'll get Clarko in, and I think they'll maybe get a couple of games better next year. There's some sort of consistency around their midfielders. I think there's some guys on their side that have shown something. I think LDU's been really good. He's really sort of come out of the box in the last 10 rounds or so. But there's guys just there that have supposedly got talent, but you're not seeing much of it. So it'll be interesting to see if Clarko can get the best out of him. And if he does, they could shoot up the ladder a little bit. I like Larky, I like Mackay down back. So they've got some good pillars at both ends of the ground. I'm not sure if Goldstein goes for another year, but you've got Coleman Jones who can play in the ruck, and I don't think your ruck needs to be an absolute dominant force. As long as you've got some good key backs, key forwards, and some good mids around them, and some good running half backs and pressure forwards. So I think they still probably need some pressure forwards. And some of their half backs, guys like Aaron Hall, lots of clangers. They just need some people you can really trust with the ball in hand. Geelong against West Coast in the annual slaughter fixture down at GMHBA. It was looking okay early, West Coast. They had it within sort of 10 points. Darling was kicking a few goals. But then Geelong just put on the butcher's apron and went to town on West Coast. I think I was listening to one of the podcasts or radio, ABC Radio, I think it was, they were talking about before this game. They go, West Coast average losing margin, something like 60 or 70 points in this lineup, in this particular fixture over at GMHBA. And that's when West Coast have been a good side. And there's some 90-point losses in there. So an 85-point loss, considering the strength of West Coast team, isn't that bad. But yeah. Not the game you want to finish with, let's just put it that way. Essendon against Richmond. Essendon showed a bit of fight early for their to-be-sacked coach. Pretty sucky situation, you got to admit, for Rutten. You pretty much know you're out the door. You haven't been sacked, though, so you got to put on a brave face for the players, try to get them up and about. But Richmond been on a really good patch of form, and they absolutely put Essendon on the sword, particularly late in the game. And they're going to be a tough matchup for Brisbane in week 1 of the finals, and I think they'll be licking their lips looking at Brisbane because they've got a pretty decent record against the Lions as well, and did beat them in the most recent game they played, coming back from 42 points down. So, bit of a dark horse for the flag. Similar sort of scenario. They could end up after their game to Brisbane, and they've got a decent record in Brisbane at the Gabba. They might be travelling up to Sydney, or they'll just be staying in Melbourne. So could be a good run for them. Showdown time was close early, bit of an arm wrestle. It wasn't very high scoring. So I was a bit surprised to see the final score at 111 to 55 as Port Adelaide smacked Adelaide. Connor Rosie won the showdown medal. And yeah, it was probably what could have been. Imagine if Port had won the first showdown. They had opportunities to have a scoreline a bit like this. And Crows were a bit wasteful in front of goal in this one, where they were fairly clinical in the earlier game, if I recall correctly. So, yep, Port won. It's reflective of the strength of the sides. I don't think that's too much of a surprise. I think Adelaide have improved a bit over the course of the year. It looks like Darcy Fogarty is going to be a really good key forward for them, getting his hands to it in contested marking situations and reeling him in, and he's a good set shot for goal. Hawks against the Dogs, the Sunday games. So the Sunday games are a lot closer than the Saturday games. Hawks got out to a bit of a lead. Dogs got the first two, and then Hawks kicked out to a bit of a lead. And then the Dogs wound back in. And it looked like they were going to win, maybe, but it was only going to be just, and that might impact their percentage. Fortunately for them, they got up by 23 points, which was just enough to get them over Carlton's percentage, because Carlton only lost by a point. So if they'd only won, I think, by, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly where the cutoff was, but it would have been between like 12 and 18 points, somewhere in there. And so they've only just really cleared the margin required. Carlton could have lost by any less, really. They got the job done down in UTAS, where it's a ground they historically don't play very well. So, gonna say a big tick for them. Be interesting to see how they go against Freo in a fortnight. I thought Freo, we controlled a large portion of the game with our kicking. Their key backs, they look a bit undersized, but Sam Darcy's coming. He's had a bit of an impact. I'm pretty sure he played up forward in this game, created 2 goals, and crumbed another, or set one up for someone else. It'll be interesting to see how they structure up against us. I think we've got the key position players to really cause some issues for them. But I have a feeling their pressure on our ball movement will be a lot better than what it was when we played them last time. I just don't see them as a team that just gets beaten the same way again. Carlton, Collingwood. So I tipped Collingwood so I wouldn't feel as bad as I did when Carlton lost. And they didn't look like they'd come up to play. Like, Collingwood were peppering them. Their backline was holding up a bit, but there was just sort of sheer weight of numbers that eventually Collingwood kicked a few, I think 24, 25 points to start the game. And then Carlton just started to chip away, get back on top. And they were winning contests sort of around the ground, but entries were just not damaging at all, and Collingwood were transitioning it much better. Then the second half, they really put the foot down, smashed Collingwood in contested possessions, clearances, inside 50s, pretty much every number that should make this like a 30-plus point blowout. They just didn't do it. And it's really surprising when you look at Carlton, who is in their team. You got Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow, the guy that won the Coleman this year and the guy that won the Coleman last year. They have such a dominance, and they just don't put it on the board. Like, Charlie Curnow missed, I think in the first quarter, an empty goal. He just doesn't pick the ball up, kick it through. He tries to snap and doesn't make the distance. Then he kicks 2 goals 5 or something. So you got to look at back at those sort of performances, just like the big game like finishes. Like, you don't want to be kicking bags of 10 goals against the minnow teams. Like, these are the games where you have a big key forward. You think the guys like, Pavlich and Rewalt, Hawkins at Geelong. Like, these sorts of games are when those types of forwards stand up and they kick you a bag and they win you the game. And they had more than enough opportunity to do that. Where you look at the other end, Collingwood don't really have that dominant key forward, and I think that's why a lot of people are like not really giving them much of a chance. And you got guys like Mychek, just when they get a sniff, like, you go. Jamie Elliott, really good again. And you just got to admire Collingwood's never give up attitude. So they're probably destined to get all the way to the grand final now before they lose again. Because that's just the Collywobbles. So yeah, you let me down, Carlton, but it's also really funny because they were getting pumped up as this team that could win the flag, and their youth and all that sort of stuff's better than Freo. But one team's playing finals and one team's watching. And then we get into the last game, St Kilda against Sydney. And Sydney had a fair margin in this game. And then like St Kilda were like, oh, you know what? There's only 20 minutes left. Let's, let's maybe upset the Swans a bit. Let's go for it. So I sat down on the couch to watch the whole quarter. Said to my wife, let's be disappointed and watch St Kilda together because they'll get close, but we'll get done. And that was exactly what happened. They got within 7 points. They gave me some hope. Oh, this isn't the result I thought. Maybe the Saints are going to do it for us. And then, Sydney just went up the other way. Hayward just went bang, kicked 2 snaps through, and that was game done and dusted. A bit of St Kilda's year summed up in a game, really. It was show potential, can challenge top sides, don't really put it together for the whole game or even the whole year. And it just leaves you walking away thinking, what could have been? That was the round that was. I got 8 out of 9. If I hadn't tipped North Melbourne and I'd just gone the safe Gold Coast tip, it would have been a perfect round. I think a lot of people got perfect rounds. I think pretty much every favourite won. I think Carlton was actually a favourite in the Collingwood game. And Brisbane were the favourite, but I don't really understand why. So I think a lot of people tipped Melbourne. I think it was just off Brisbane's home record at the Gabba where they've only lost 2 in the last year and a bit. I saw a lot of perfect rounds. Just looking at the overall tipping leaderboard, which I'm in the West Comp for. Winner finished on 154 tips. Well done. I finished on 128, which puts me quite a way back. And will be some cause for reflection for next year about tipping upsets. And maybe just tipping against Collingwood in general. If I'd tipped Collingwood more, would have done better. So let me know what you finished on with your tips for the year. I'm fairly happy with the score I got. And let me know which final you're looking forward to. I'm going to take a bit of a break, maybe come back in a week or so when there's actually some more games and team news to talk about. Until then, catch you all later. Bye.